I've got money now, but I just want people to hear that having money doesn't change the behavior. Sometimes it increases it.
Thomas Edison, Richard Branson, John F. Kennedy, Mozart, Michael Jordan, Will Smith. That sounds like a list of highly successful titans in a variety of vocations. Why is it that we rarely hear that they have or had ADHD? And you know what we hear even less about? Serena Williams, Emma Watson, Mel Robbins, Whoopi Goldberg, Agatha Christie, Erin Brockovich, Cher. Yeah, the successful women navigating ADHD. And that's exactly why I started this podcast, ADHD for Smartass Women. I'm your host, Tracy Otsuka. I'm a lawyer, not a doctor, a lifelong student, now a coach. I'm also the creator of Your ADHD Brain is A-OK, a system that helps people like you figure out what they should do with their life. And we're here today to talk ADHD, your strengths, your symptoms, your workarounds, and how you proudly stand out instead of trying to fit in. I credit my ADHD for some of my greatest gifts. And you know what? I spy a happier life for you too. So without further ado, a shiny new episode is starting now. Hello, I am your host, Tracy Otsuka. Thank you so much for joining me here for episode 193 of ADHD for Smartass Women. I hope that you'll subscribe to this podcast and our newsletter over at tracyotsuka.com. You know my purpose. It's always to show you who you are and then inspire you to be it. And in the thousands of ADHD women that I've had the privilege of meeting, I've never met a one that wasn't truly brilliant at something, not one. So for all of these reasons, I am just delighted to introduce you to Denise Duffield-Thomas. Denise is the money mentor for the new wave of online entrepreneurs who want to make money and change the world. She helps entrepreneurs charge premium prices, release the fear of money, and create first-class lives. With her Money Bootcamp, she has helped over 8,500 students from all around the world. Her books, Lucky Bitch, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch, and her newest, Chill and Prosper, give a fresh and funny roadmap to living a life of abundance without burnout. Denise proudly dubs herself a lazy introvert, a Hay House author, and an unbusy mother of three. She owns a rose farm and lives by the beach in sunny Australia. And most importantly, she was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 42. And it's been a life-changing journey. Denise, welcome to our very exclusive Smartass Club. Did I get all of that right?
Oh my gosh, you did such a great job. And I've been looking forward to this interview for so long. I'm thrilled for us to talk.
Me too. So, Denise, we always talk about ADHD first here. So would you mind telling us about the circumstances that led to your diagnoses at 42?
Well, through my son, which I'm sure you've heard a million times. My son, George, who's now 6, at around 4.5, his daycare teacher started to just tell us he needed a bit more support. So we went to occupational therapy, we went to dietitians, and he was actually doing well at daycare, but daycare's so unstructured. They were a bit concerned about him going to school. And we did a year of this. And then I remembered it was just before Christmas, and we were having a phone call. My husband and I, we were in the car park having this last minute phone call. And the lady said, there was just one thing I wanted to say. And I was just like, just say it. And she went, I think he might have ADHD. And it was like the clouds parted. And it was just like, and I went, oh my God, he totally does. And then it was kind of like, maybe I do as well. And I do know why it didn't occur to me. All of my cousins, my brother, my mom, all of them were like that. And so I did have two cousins who were kind of diagnosed, but in the 80s and 90s, when it was like you had to be so extreme and like a bad, really naughty kind of disruptive kid. And I was like, but I'm not naughty and disruptive. I just want to read my book 20 hours a day. And yeah, I lost my keys and yeah, I never knew where I was going to be. But I thought that was because I grew up with this kind of chaotic mother. And that's why. And so I thought I was the normal one. And I don't know if you've ever watched that British show, Absolutely Fabulous.
Oh my God, I love that show. Patsy.
Yeah, okay, so I was the daughter. I was the Safi. And my mum, was the Adina. And it never occurred to me. So that was the moment. And then I joined your group just to lurk, just to lurk and see, I can't have it. I don't know. I had all that stigma, I was like, but I'm successful and it's my family who are the,
I'm making a lot of money. How could I have ADHD?
Exactly. And then it was just such a beautiful, even it took me a while to even go and get the diagnosis. And finally, I woke up one day, got a telehealth appointment with my doctor so I could do it straight away. And she went, okay, well, go get a blood test and we'll come back in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, I looked at my calendar and I said, oh, I'm speaking to my doctor today. I wonder what that's about. Oh, crap, I forgot to get the blood test. So I had to go and find the paperwork. It was covered in coffee, screwed up at the bottom of my car, did the paperwork, forgot to, do the follow-up. All of the things were just so hilarious. And then I actually did prepare for the meeting with my doctor. I created this massive, big 4 pieces of paper taped together of a timeline of my life. And every time I thought of something, I would put it in. And then I got there and he said, why do you think you have ADHD? And then he just let me talk for 50 minutes. And at the end he went, okay, let's do a trial of drugs. He didn't say a single word. He just went, okay. And then since then, I'm in the process of getting my siblings diagnosed. And that's been the same thing of like, okay, let's get that first appointment done. It's taken a while.
So when your son was diagnosed, you didn't have any of this, oh my gosh, no, he doesn't have ADHD. Like there was no grief around it. It was just like, yeah, that makes sense. How did you know what ADHD looked like that you weren't scared of it?
I really think it is different for our generation if you were on social media, because the work that people have done, like yourself, it really has helped to destigmatize a lot of that. But I think we're a bit desperate for a solution. George is such a wonderful kid, but we were doing couples counseling to deal with some of the stresses that he was bringing into our life. And it was really upsetting to think, how is this kid going to be at school? And even in getting him diagnosed, as you know, it's such a long process. It still took a year because waiting lists are really long at the moment. But even in that first appointment, she said, look, he's not even at school yet. There's nothing I can really do. And so she wanted him to be at least 1 term at school. And that first term was worse than we could have possibly even imagined. Because at daycare, again, like he had a teacher who really loved him. So there would be 4 or 5 daycare teachers there. And this one teacher would say, George, come on my lap while, that other teacher's reading the story. And she just nurtured him so well. But in a classroom of 25 kids, he was in trouble every day. He wasn't following the rules. He was really disruptive. And he's a lovely kid, but you can't do that. And so that school teacher, she was really honest with us, and she was just like, it's really painful, guys. And we knew her. She had taught one of our other kids. And I was, in a way, that follow-up appointment, to see if he could get medicated. In my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to have to like really put this on and, and just say to her, it's really, really painful. And I'm not a crier. And I got into that appointment and I just said, I am so worried for his future. Because by that time I'd read that, life expectancy is lower and impulsive behavior that can lead to car accidents and drug taking and things like that. Like I literally just prison, exactly. And some of my cousins, one of my cousins, trigger warning, committed suicide because he just could not cope with that life after decades of getting into trouble. And I literally just got into that appointment and just burst into tears. And she just wrote me out a prescription for him. Let's give it a try. And, that second term, he got an award the first week. He was able to go to soccer. We'd been trying to put him into soccer for years. And it hasn't been perfect. He's lost weight. We're still kind of trying to adjust and see, there's a little bit of aggression and things like that. But it has been life-changing. And for the first time I went, oh my God, this kid, he really is smart and he can do something. He sat down and learnt chess.
Okay, he's really smart. How old is he? 6?
He's 6. He just, and I can see him just going, really blossoming, and those behaviors that were just so distracting for him. It just gave me so much hope seeing that.
And that's all we need, right? I mean, especially when it comes to our children. I had a very similar experience to you it was later, like starting at 9, where we just went from one place to the other. We'll try this, we'll try that. And my son was not disruptive. I can't imagine if he was, how much more painful that would have been. That he had, I don't know, did he have problems with other kids?
A little bit. He could get a bit, I don't know, just like, this is the way we should do it. And there was some social skill stuff too. He could just sometimes be a little bit inappropriate. But actually at school, it was just not following the rules. The first rule of kindergarten is we don't share food, we don't share money. And so he was just like, but I want to go to the canteen and my parents haven't given me money, so I'm just going to ask someone else for it. And the teachers were like, oh, you stole that girl's money. And he was like, but I didn't. I asked for it. And she gave it to me. And they were like, but you can't have money in kindy. But you could see him kind of going, but that's a really dumb rule. I want to go to the canteen. So there were things like that where he wasn't being malicious. He just genuinely was like, that's really dumb. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And
these rules do not make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Absolutely. And for me, what I used to do was just, wanted to read all day. And now I see that was because everything was very overwhelming. And so I was like, oh, I'll put a book on my lap and read. I'll put a book behind this textbook and read. And sometimes the teachers would let me do it. But if they didn't, I remember kind of closing the book and looking at them going, this is on you. This is on you now. And then I would be tap dancing under the table and I would chat to everybody. And I would suddenly be this class clown, that was really disruptive. And so, yeah, it's fascinating to see how it comes out. And I mean, as I'm sure you've heard a million times too, everything now, I'm looking at it in such a different light, and it's with real compassion and also a bit of sadness too. Compassion for my mum, that she used to forget to pick me up from dancing. Real compassion. And because I blamed so much of that on her personality, but also the fact that we grew up without money. And now that's not my excuse. There's heaps of times where I go, oh my God, I forgot to pick up the kids. I forgot I had children. And that's,
Totally.
That's got nothing to do with money. So it's such a weird feeling, isn't it? Looking at everything in your life in such a different light.
Yeah. Anything else that's changed since you were diagnosed? Are you kinder to yourself?
Yes.
Or were you always kind to yourself?
No, I was so hard on myself for my behavior at school. I never remembered where I was supposed to be. And that was fine at primary school when you're in the one classroom, but I would never remember to do my assignments. So I had this perception of myself who was someone who did things last minute, that I was lazy. High school and university, it was, oh my God, which classroom am I supposed to be in? And so I was constantly in this state of stress and overwhelm, forgetting my bus pass every day, feeling like I was always running late. University was so painful for me, especially when I went to uni in the late 90s. Nothing was online. So I would be on my way to uni going, oh my God, I've got an exam today. And they would physically post the exam room on one building on, a far side of the campus. So I had to rush there, go, okay, where is my exam supposed to be on this massive big, paper? And then think, oh, it's this exam. I don't even have my calculator with me. And then, oh, where's that building again? And I had that constant adrenaline rush. And I failed Econ 101 3 times. I had to go to summer school for it.
Why do you think that was?
I was just so disorganized, and I think I was really burnt out from high school, and I didn't take a break, and I didn't go to orientation week because I was working, and I had 3 or 4 jobs at university all at the same time. And so I was just really in that the just horrible adrenaline rush of not knowing where I was supposed to be. And I actually became an incredible pool shark at university, because I would sit there in the classroom and just go, I can't take this in. And then I would sort of look at someone and go, do you want to go play pool? I'll pay. And that was my coping mechanism. But you know what? I did so well in marketing. In my marketing exams, I would end up with 3 or 4 extra booklets. You know how you can add an extra book and you had to tie it on with pencil? Because it would be like, put together a marketing plan for this company. And I would put together a marketing plan, and then I would write fake emails and memos, and I'd design the logo, and I would do all this stuff. And so my exam booklet ended up being like 5 pages, because the creativity would just come out. But you can't fake economics. You can't fake accounting if you really didn't study it. And that was the problem. I just didn't do the right degree. I should have just done a straight marketing degree, but I did a e-commerce degree that had statistics and demography and accounting and economics, and all of those things you really just can't fake your way.
And did you choose those degrees because you thought that they were more legitimate than just a marketing degree?
No, I just didn't know. I didn't come from a family who went to university, and I just thought, I just want to do a business degree. It was just an impulsive kind of decision, and I didn't have anyone to help me. And I also didn't know that you could change, and I probably should have, but there was no one to kind of nurture me and to say, hey, because you go there and you're one of 500 kids in a tutorial. There was no one to sort of go, okay, look, you're doing really badly. So my 3-year degree, I ended up being there for almost 5 years. And then I impulsively got a job in London and left. And so I actually just tried to find any university in the UK who would take me and let me finish those credits. And so I ended up with a business degree from some random university in the UK just to tick it off. But even that, I was just thought, and then I went, probably a decade of switching jobs and changing jobs and doing 40 hours worth of work on a Friday afternoon because I'd procrastinated all week at my job. And so I think I just had this thought of myself of going, I'm brilliant in the moment. I'm brilliant if I pull it all out. But that came at such a high cost to my adrenals.
Ultimately, did you think you were smart?
I knew I was, but actually, you know what I used to call myself, Tracy, at school? Little Miss Slightly Above Average.
Oh, jeez.
Because I thought, I came second in my class for, I don't know, English or something like that. And so I always just thought, that feeling of, I have so much potential if only I could access it.
Yeah. Well,
and that was, yeah.
That's something a lot of ADHD women can relate to, because you're so consistently inconsistent. You never know, well, when is the consistency actually going to show up, right?
Yeah.
And when we're that young, like you said, I mean, right, we can see our path looking behind us, but we can't see it looking in front of us. So you didn't know that marketing would be your area of genius. You knew that you did really well in it, but I mean, we don't know at that age.
No, we don't. And also I did have a chaotic upbringing that did have its own trauma that was bringing that stuff in. But I'd have these little flashes of moments, like my marketing professor actually said to me, he said, look, I am going to give you a good grade on this, but it is clear you're just bullshitting and like you're just making things up. I can tell that you haven't really read the material. But he kind of goes, I think in like 5 years' time, you're going to be either a millionaire or you're going to be in jail.
Oh my.
And he kind of said it with a smile on his face. So I didn't take it that personally. But then I had someone else in one of my first kind of corporate careers, and he said the same. He kind of said, you know what, I really think that, in 5 years' time, you're going to have this like independent income, and I think you're going to be really successful. And I kind of held on to those things as like, wow, someone believes in me. But I didn't know how to direct any of that, especially at work. And I really do mean that I did my work on a Friday afternoon. I'd get in there on Monday, and I'd always find a job in a company where I was kind of a lone wolf. Even when I worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers, I always had this, job where I didn't work with anybody. I could kind of come in and no one knew what I was doing. And so I'd go, I'll start tomorrow. And then I'd be like, it's Tuesday. Tuesday's just a nothing day. There's no point doing any work today. Wednesday's hump day. I'll start tomorrow. Thursday, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll really get stuff done today. And then Friday morning, I'd be like, it's Friday, I'll start after lunch. And then after lunch, I'd just go, okay, now I have to do everything. And I'd do from 2 to 5, I'd do all of my work.
Oh, my word.
Yep. And you know what that's like? It's like this collapsing of time and space, and you have to just do everything. But I was kind of used to that because I'd always had, at university, not only was I failing statistics and playing pool, I was an Olympic mascot because Australia had the Olympics then. And so from 1998 to 2000, I was an Olympic mascot a couple of times a week promoting the Olympic Games.
What is that? What is an Olympic mascot?
Oh, so the Olympics, when we do the Olympics. So Sydney had the 2000 Olympics, and I was a children's performer from about 16 onwards, doing school holiday shows, working for a company that did Bugs Bunny shows. And I would either be a dancer in those shows, or I would be a suit. I would be Elmer Fudd, or Christmas parades or things like that. And then that company got the contract to do the Olympic mascot. So every Olympic has their own mascots. We had 4. We had Millie the Echidna, who was my character, Sid the Platypus, Ollie the Kookaburra, and Lizzie the Lizard, who was the Paralympic mascot. And so in the lead up to the games, we performed at, I don't know, there would be a 500 days to go pin, or there would be a parade, or there would be a show. And so I was performing that all of the time on the weekends and doing things during the week, trying to study, waitressing. And also I took on, and this is so funny, but so ADHD, I was trying to find a job that I could kind of do within all of those other commitments. And so one company that was open 24/7 was a phone sex chat line. And you could do as many shifts as you wanted to. They were open 24/7. And so I would go and do like a midnight to 6 a.m. shift. I was terrible at it. Like just not good. And I could study there as well. So I kind of was able to have this, very uninspiring sexual conversation with someone trying to study at the same time at midnight. So I was just used to living at that pace of collapsing lifetimes and times and tasks all in one. And I was my heart rate was always up. I always felt sweaty. I always felt ill-prepared. So I just feel so sorry for myself for those 20s where I was just...
But I could also see how you could think, well, this is just because I have all these jobs. I'm running around. I'm doing all this stuff. I've got my phone sex chat in the evenings. Like, it would be easy to see that you would think that that is the reason, right? That you feel so discombobulated, because that alone would do it.
And I love that word, discombobulated. I actually use it a lot because it did feel that way. But I was also used to really kind of faking that. And so most people wouldn't have known. They would have just thought, wow, Denise, you're so calm and centered. And it's because it was that show training where it's the show must go on. And I learnt that, I started dancing at 8 and we would have a lot of competitions. And my dance teacher was amazing and very understanding of my mum turning up late, sitting in the car park with me with all the lights off, kind of waiting for my mum. But she was very understanding of me turning up with one tap shoe to the show. And she'd be like, great, put my tap shoes on. Or Denise has forgot her top hat. That's okay. I have a spare one. And that whole feeling of the show must go on, your leotard goes up your bum during the show, you keep going. The set falls down, you keep going. And things like that seem to happen a lot. You know, we'd get somewhere, she'd have us performing every weekend, and we'd get somewhere and they'd go, well, the stage isn't ready, so you have to tap dance on concrete. Okay, no problem. The music sped up or the music stopped and we had to keep on going. We had to improvise. And I think that early lesson kind of, for good and bad, taught me that you just present this, you know, calm facade and the show must go on no matter what, that I didn't even know that that wasn't a normal way of being, how I was being, because no one would have noticed.
Although I could see that that would serve you well in the kind of business that you were, you know, you ultimately ended up doing, online business, because things are constantly breaking, things don't work, and you just keep trying new things. You just don't give up.
Yeah, it does. But that show must go on mentality sometimes doesn't serve me, because I didn't realize you could say no.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I didn't realize that you could negotiate.
Not show up. Not show up for the show.
For real. And I used to just say yes to everything. And when my book came out, actually the first version of Chill and Prosper, which was called Chillpreneur, someone asked me to come and do like a morning TV show. And I was 8 months pregnant. And I sort of went, you know what? I'm a bit tired. And even saying that felt like, oh, what a loser. Just do it. And so I said, you know what? Let's book it for, you know, in 2 months' time. When I had an 8-week-old baby, what? And I just thought, I'll just make it happen. And I got to the point where I was just stressing about it every night. And that was George. He didn't sleep from birth. And I had to send an email and just said, look, I can't make it work. And I remember thinking, just say you got into a car accident. Just say you have explosive diarrhea. Because you can't cancel the show. Like, you have to suck it up, put makeup on. You know, we used to say TTT to each other, teeth, tits, taps. You know, like, smile, push your tits out, tap shoes on, TTT. And that's kind of how I was in work and business. And sometimes I'm still like that. Okay, TTT. You know, I'm exhausted at the moment because I've been launching a book. I've been creating a new program. I've been filming this week. I've been up till midnight, 2 a.m. And I've been doing all these interviews for my book. And, you know, I'll be getting up in the morning and look at my roster and just go, oh. And yesterday Mark said, oh, your call with Tracy, it's audio only. And I went, oh, thank God, because there's times where I have to put on that makeup.
Yeah, I
when
agree.
I'm exhausted. Yeah, and as I'm putting my makeup on, I'm thinking, TTT. You know, it's that that meme of like putting on your makeup while you're crying. There's been times where I've just gone, and then I'm like, all right, showtime. And that early, you know, those early experiences really helped me, but it really was a revelation just to say, sometimes you can negotiate and you can cancel the show and no one's going to die.
No,
okay.
And we make it up in our head like it's such a big deal. And then you do it and it's like, okay, what? Really?
Yes. And I love when people cancel on me. They go, you know, I'm sorry that the daycare fell through. I'm like, please, this is so inspiring to me to say, I can't make this work. And we should do that, especially for entrepreneurs. We have to be so kind to each other, because I reckon 80% of the entrepreneurs I know have ADHD.
I agree.
We just have to be compassionate to each other, because I know that it's struggling for us to be compassionate to ourselves.
Absolutely. Okay, so I read your book, Denise, and I didn't expect that I would like it as much as I did. And part of it is I had so many books to read, you know, so they just kind of, you're ticking them off. I thought it was so perfect for the ADHD brain. And I think what I like most is that you come at the reader with the goal of talking about what for most of us is a pretty heavy subject, money, right? But you have this way of making it so light, so happy, so simple, so doable. And I always talk about how important positive emotion is to the ADHD brain. And you just get that. And I think because your book made me happy, I could very easily just kind of, you know, just get through it. It was no problem at all. And I'm wondering, was this intentional on your part to just lighten the whole subject up? I didn't read Chillpreneur. I read years ago when I first got into online business, I did read Lucky Bitch, but I didn't read the first one. So I don't know how it compares.
Well, I didn't know I had ADHD when I wrote the first version of Chillpreneur, which is hilarious because one of the chapters is called Keyless Life.
I have that one tabbed. We're going to talk about it.
I didn't know I had ADHD. And so what happened was last year, my publisher sent me an email and said, oh, can we have a meeting in 2 weeks? And I went into full imposter syndrome. I thought, oh my God, they're going to drop me. I'm in trouble. They've been hearing podcast interviews where I talked about I didn't like my cover. I really just went into full panic mode, thinking, oh my God. And then after a week of sleepless nights, I sent them a message and said, is there anything I need to do to prepare for this meeting? And they said, oh no, we just want to talk about an updated version of Chillpreneur. And I went, oh my God. And so for them, they said, look, you wrote it pre-pandemic. We would love to be able to acknowledge that there's been something that's changed. And I wanted to update things because people would email me and say, well, that's great, but I can't be that easy breezy in my industry. It doesn't work. I'm not allowed to do my business online. I'm not allowed to. My clients would never, let me do that online. And then the pandemic changed things where so many people had to pivot and change the way they delivered. And so I was thrilled to be able to do an updated version. And I never had liked the cover of the first one. The other thing too is that Entrepreneur Magazine owns the word entrepreneur, and they own every preneur, thing. And so I couldn't use Chillpreneur in any other context except for book. And so for me, I went, oh, this is great. This is an opportunity to change the name, get a better cover, add in some case studies. And of course, you're never happy when you put something in. And I was always like, oh, great, I can change that little thing that I didn't like. But the problem was I pretty much rewrote everything and I couldn't stop. And even when I handed in all of the edits, I did it on a Google Doc and I handed it in at like 2 a.m. and I woke up at 6 going, I just want to change that one word. But because I'd handed it in on a Google Doc, I could. I just snuck in.
Oh, so wait a minute. You're allowed to submit your manuscript on using a Google Doc? It didn't have to be Word?
It was all of the just the edits. Because I was like, insert this bit here and all of the case studies and things like that. So they could just go put it in. And yeah, they let me do it on Google Docs,
which was so jealous.
Oh, fantastic, right? It was so good. But it allowed me though to sneak in and change it because it was a live document, which is so funny. So that's why that was why we did a new edition. But I also could then acknowledge that I had ADHD in there and make it a little bit more explicit. But in terms of the lightness, I think that is my personality I've always been that cheerleader. I grew up watching Oprah, and so I was kind of that person of going, it's okay, you can do it. And I think even my first book, when it was called Lucky Bitch and then Get Rich Lucky Bitch, some people would go, oh, I hate that word bitch. But then they would listen to me, read it out in the Audible and go, oh, it's quite nice. It's not a horrible word, but I actually ended up changing. My business was called Lucky Bitch because of that disconnect a little bit.
So I'm curious, have you read, I know we were talking about trauma and then now we're talking about Oprah, who I'm sure she knows how many people's lives she changed, the world's. Have you read her book with Dr. Bruce Perry, What Happened to You, about trauma?
It's on my list.
Oh, you need to read
it. It is on my list. There's something there for me. I do have a lot of trauma from growing up, and sometimes it's just not wanting to really go there sometimes. So it's been on my list. But I actually have met Oprah, and so I just want to tell you about that real quick.
It's not a difficult read, though. It's not. I am like you in that I don't have the developmental trauma, but I am a weenie. I cannot take anything that, is torture or violence, especially towards children and women. I can't do it. And the stories that they tell, they do it so well that it's one of the, I just can't recommend it highly enough. So it's not hard in that way.
Good to know, because I was kind of avoiding it a little bit.
Well, it's been sitting for a while here too. So I get that.
Yeah. Well, she was coming to Australia and I was on holidays and I saw it on my phone and I went, oh my God. And I had 1% battery and I just went, I have to buy a ticket for her VIP event. And it was about $2,000. And I just went, oh my God, I've got to do it, because she was such an influence on me. And so I was, typing as quickly as I could. ADHD,
what year was this?
Superpower. Gosh.
Approximately?
2015, 16.
Okay, so fairly recently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was pregnant with George, so it must have been, 2000, and he was born 2016. So 2015. And so I went to this event and I bought a special outfit for it. And I was, really pregnant. And she came out, there was about 50 people for it. And she came out just so chill. It was just like, oh, hey, y'all, this is so cool. I'm in Sydney. And I thought, I just had so much pressure to think, oh my God, I can't talk to her. And Mark was like, take one of your books and give her one of your books. And I went, no, I can't be that tacky. And they actually made us sign something to say, we're not going to give her a gift. We're not going to, harass her. We're going to be chill about it, basically. And then I get there and I see every single person has got a gift for her. They've got their books. They've got this thing. And I was sitting there just going, oh my God, the pressure of this moment. And I thought, I'm too scared to ask her a question. So she comes out and she goes, oh, I love what you're wearing. Is that a Camilla? And Camilla is this Australian designer who does a very specific, beautiful caftan thing. And I said, oh, yes. I wasn't just going to wear, Target to come and see Oprah. I bought it especially. And she said, oh, she goes, I shop at Target all the time. Target. She said, Target. And I just went, oh my God. And then she said, why did you come? And I said, well, I've been watching your show since I was a little girl and you have changed everything. And she said, oh, I raised you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she just said it just in that full knowing that she has raised generations of, mostly women. She knows that we are her surrogate daughters. And then she said, but what did I teach you? And I said, you taught me to break the cycle. I knew from a young age that I was in a dysfunctional situation because of your show. I knew that my mum was in dysfunctional relationships because of your show. And it made me so determined to break the cycle and do something different. And then she just went, yeah, great. And I could just see her going, great, you're one of my girls. I accept that. Disciple. And then yeah, exactly. I got to have a photo with her and I could see her kind of eyeing my stomach, but I remember hearing her a long time ago saying she would never comment if someone's pregnant or not because she got it wrong so many times. And I wish I'd said something because, my son George was in there and we got a photo and it was just such a highlight. And again, I wanted to fangirl and gush and I just couldn't. And I just hugged her and said, thank you. And got my photo. And I was so excited to get the photo back. And what was hilarious about it when it did come back, because I was pregnant and the lighting was very strange, but all you could see were my nipples in this shot. And I just had these massive, big, prego, prominent nipples in this shot. And I actually had to pay someone to Photoshop my nipples out so I could share it on social media because that's all you could see. But it was such a profound moment for me just to say, thank you to someone who really had changed my life. And it's really funny. But actually, Mark, the follow-up to this story is literally Mark on the weekend met someone at football, one of the other parents, and was saying, oh, we live in Merriweather. Oh, we live next door. And he goes, oh, I heard that a lady who's best friends with Oprah lives in that house. And it's just because I've told the story so many times about meeting Oprah. It's been, bastardized into this story that,
you're now best friends
there who's best friends with Oprah. And I'm like, okay.
Cool. One of the observations I'm having as I'm hearing you speak, clearly you have done so well You're all about making the millions and you walk your talk. And yet, when you tell stories, for example, the story about the publisher or the story about Oprah, I still hear kind of a questioning of, oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable, or what did I do wrong? That kind of like little RSD devil coming up.
Yeah. Because I was always getting into trouble for forgetting my ruler, not having a calculator, wearing the wrong thing to, oh, it was sports day. You didn't know it was sports day? Oh, didn't you know it was photography day today?
Yeah.
So I was just used to kind of getting in trouble all the time, or having to manipulate time and space to avoid getting into trouble. And that's exhausting. And so I think my adrenals were just always like on edge and waiting for the bad thing to happen. And that is trauma. That is trauma. And I have to do a lot of work on that still. I have monthly, not so much counseling and things, but I do all of the techniques that I teach people to do, but I have to do them with my own practitioners because it's not the same when you're teaching things, as you know.
Right.
You need someone to hold space for you too. Mm-hmm. And so I do have to do a lot of those things, and life isn't perfect. And I still make a lot of those impulsive decisions. Just that now I have more money to do them. I moved around a lot as a kid, and so I never was able to collect things. And so for my first couple of years, even of owning a house, I didn't put art on the walls and anything like that. And now I have two houses. So I have my beach house and I have my farmhouse. And my farmhouse came with this big barn. And so I actually started filling it with stuff. This is, again, before I knew I had ADHD, but I loved thrifting and I loved collecting things. But my mum would kind of make us throw things out a lot. And so I remember this one weekend where I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to start thrifting stuff for my farm and for the farmhouse. And I found this old couch, like a rattan kind of couch with these big solid legs, at a thrift store. And I went, oh, this would be so great, painted and covered. And then in the next thrift store, I found a couch exactly the same. And this lady said, oh, it's this particular style. And I went, oh, that's really interesting. I'll look it up on Marketplace. And then I found 3 couches on Marketplace. And then I went, this is going to be really hard to collect these couches. So I hired a truck, like a removal truck. And then I went searching. I went hyper-focused into it. And by the end of that weekend, I had 22 of these couches.
What were you going to do with them?
Well, because at first I went, oh, this is great. I can have it for the house. And then I went, well, I kind of need 2 or 3 couches for this house. And then I went, well, I could have one on the veranda. But because I've got this big barn, I was thinking I would love to host events and little mini conferences in this barn. And I'd done the numbers. I thought, oh, you know what? We could have about 70 people in this barn. And I thought, well, instead of sitting on normal chairs, wouldn't it be fun if they could sit on these couches?
Oh, yeah.
And that they were all matching. And so even 22 is not enough, because I was like, oh, you could have 2 people sitting on a couch. And then so, that's 44 people. So really I need another, this. But it's because I've got the space to do it that I can get into trouble. And then the next thing happened, I went, well, what would be really fun is if you could give, you could say to people, get into a group of 4 and here's your picnic basket with your lunch. And so I went, I need picnic baskets. And I ended up with probably about 20 picnic baskets the next time, because then you see them on Marketplace and then you see them on thrift stores and then the algorithm kicks in, and then so you open up Facebook and Facebook are like, I heard you like picnic baskets.
Here.
Yeah. And my husband is completely opposite to me. He does not have ADHD. He's really steady. He's really organized. And so he enables me sometimes, because sometimes I'll see things, but I wouldn't get around to actually getting it.
Yeah.
And so I would send him things and I'd say to him, go get $20 out, go to this lady's house. She's going to give you something. He'd go, what is it? I go, don't ask any questions. Just go get this thing. And so then at the farm, because I've got all this space again, I've got picnic baskets everywhere. And then I've got a lot of antique cars because I'll see them and be impulsive about it. And so this sounds like, again, I just want to preface this of I'm very privileged, I've got money now, but I just want people to hear that having money doesn't change the behavior. Sometimes it increases it. And there's still a part of me too that sees things and goes, well, I can be the one to fix that. I can be the one to renovate that. And I don't like leaving that little couch there that's going to get neglected and no one's going to like it. And so then it's, tea sets. I've got 1 million tea sets out there because I think, well, if I have 70 people there and they have tea, I want them to have tea out of these beautiful floral mugs. And so I'll be at a thrift store and I'll see this, set for like $30 of this beautiful antique flowered china set.
Right, but you're thrifting this, right? You're not buying, 30 brand new couches and 30 brand new tea sets. So I'm
justifying it. And I love that you're justifying it for me. Thank you, Tracy.
Well, I got to tell you, the whole time I was reading this book, the question that was never answered that I had was, have you always been good with money? Or did I miss it? Did you talk about it and I missed it?
No, terrible with money. And because my mum was kind of like that feast or famine person as well, she changed jobs a lot. She was a single parent. And so she was very lucky. She would win, I remember she won $5,000 on a slot machine one time, and people would give her things, and she would be in relationships with people who had lots of money. And so it would be feast or famine in my house. If you had the good yogurts, eat them all because there's no good yogurts tomorrow. So I was kind of like that with food and money. And when I moved out of home for the first time at 18, I impulsively bought a laptop on hire purchase. Back then, very high interest rate. My 20s, I got in a lot of impulsive problems with money. And because I changed jobs so much, I never really earned a ton of money, but I didn't open my credit cards. I paid my credit card bill late every month because I just didn't remember. And so it wasn't probably until my late 20s that I kind of got into reading The Automatic Millionaire and Smart Women Finish Rich and Susie Orman books. And I heard Susie Orman at a Hay House event, and she stood on the stage and she introduced herself with saying, I'm Susie Orman. And she goes, I stand before you, I can't even do her accent, a very, very, very wealthy woman. And I had chills from top to toe. And I thought, I want to be able to say that. And so I really immersed myself in a lot of those personal finance books. And I decided to kind of merge the two worlds that I was living in, the woo-woo spiritual world that I was exploring and this very, do the thing, put money aside world. And so I got out of debt very quickly, all of that impulsive debt I'd built up. And I really started bringing those two worlds together. I was like, oh, well, Louise Hay's telling me about forgiveness work and self-love. What if I do that with my money? And that led me on a very beautiful exploration of this world of money mindset. And I'm very honest about that. I was never good with money, and I don't give financial advice because I still have my money issues as well. As I said, impulsivity can really derail me sometimes, but I want to be a cheerleader for other people, even just to normalize the conversation of money is probably my role in this. I'm not saying to people, get out of debt and save. I'm saying you can get out of debt, and here are some resources I've used, and I believe in you, and let's find the path of least resistance to that. And it's okay for you to talk about money. It's fun to talk about money. But I'm definitely not perfect with money myself.
Well, that makes me feel better. If I wasn't married to a banker, I would be so screwed. But it's interesting. I do feel like I'm getting better and better, but it really comes from not beating yourself up.
Yes. And for us, it's about automating things, right?
Yes.
Making sure that our bills are automated so we don't have to be better at it. We can just let that. And that's the keyless life philosophy, right? Of going, well, you know what? You're never going to remember to pay your bills on time. So make sure they're on auto pay, and auto pay savings, because out of sight, out of mind. You won't even notice that it's gone. And those little things that we can do to kind of check ourselves before I wreck ourselves.
Okay, so talk to us about auto pay savings. How do you set that up?
Well, I realized that because I had been so in that feast or famine energy as a kid, even when I had money, I would kind of push it away at the last minute because I was used to kind of having nothing, but also having to have that adrenaline rush of pulling everything out of my butt last minute. So I had to acclimatize to it. I remember putting away $5 a week on an automatic payment to an online savings account that was a little bit difficult for me to access because I had to remember the password and all of those things that were too hard in the too hard basket. And I started with $5 a week, and I raided that savings account a few times. And then I kind of just got used to having a little bit more than I needed and without feeling like I had to quickly push it away. And then I did $7, and then I did $11, and then I did more and more until I actually built up to like $1 million of savings but I had to start with $5 because I couldn't even hold $5 without sabotaging it. And I completely paid off $1 million mortgage. And I mean, I was earning good money in my business. But then, you know what I did? I impulsively bought a house near the ocean. Not impulsively, but I bought another house, but I just knew it wasn't the right decision. We owned that house for 6 weeks. And I just went, Mark, we have to follow our dreams and live by the ocean. And I had to do a massive big launch to kind of pay for this property by the ocean.
Tell that story. I think that's the story where you get cold feet, right? Once it's done.
Yes. Well, I had been for years walking in the neighborhood now I live in and saying, one day I'm going to live in one of these properties. One day, one of them is mine. I don't know which one it is. And so I've always been really good at that kind of energy, that manifesting energy that then helps you to do the thing. Mm-hmm. And do that uncomfortable stuff of building a business sometimes, because I was just so certain, and I would bring other people into that dream with me. My husband would be like, babe, we are going to live in this neighborhood. Let's go visit. Let's go touch the walls. Let's pretend we're going home. And I went to every open house in this neighborhood for 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
And none of the real estate agents would ever talk to me. And I just, built my business steadily and made more and more money. And I got to that $1 million mark when I was 35. So what's that, 7 years ago? But it was still a really big dream to live. And I remember being at an open house just around the corner for me. And I always heard this voice in my head saying, get out, this isn't your house. And we went across the road, and there's this amazing, frontage, looks out to the ocean, but it was a real derelict building. And I went, oh, what about this house? And it was $3.8 million just for the land. It doesn't even have a house on it. And Mark goes, he kind of is always the one going, oh, I don't think we can do it. And I go, you just said the magic words. You just said those magic words. And so we sat down with our financial advisors, and they were like, no, you just can't do it. I went, all right, guys, tell me how much money it's going to take. I'll go get the money and I'll be back. And I did a really big launch, and obviously you don't have to put $3.8 million down, but you have to put a big chunk of that, it's like 20% deposit. And so I went, I'll do a launch. And, and every day in that launch, I was looking at the picture. I would go visit. I'd be like, this is my land. This is it. And then the same thing happened with the rose farm. I was just, because I thought, okay, I live near the beach now. Wouldn't it be nice to have a country property? And I started just dream building, putting together a Pinterest board. And I said to Mark, why don't we just go look at, just go to open houses just for fun. And he was like, okay. And I found this beautiful rose farm that has this cottage on it. And I stepped out into the land, and Mark looked at my face and he went, oh, fuck.
He knew.
He knew. And I spoke to our financial advisors, and they went, no, you can't, it's not possible. And I went, tell me how much money, guys. I'll go make the money. And so October 2018, if anyone, bought Money Bootcamp on that month, that was my rose farm launch. But I'll tell you actually what, I put this in the book, but it's a really fun story to tell. I still felt sick about that buying.
Yes, I want you to tell that story. That's an amazing
I felt
story.
sick. And, I'd pulled it off and I'd made it all happen, but the adrenaline wore off on the day that we had to pick up the keys, and I felt so sick about it. And we got in the car and we were driving to pick up the keys, and I said to Mark, babe, we are just going to really have to tighten our belt in the next year. It was almost like, okay, now the consequence has to come.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and he goes, that doesn't sound like you. And I
you're
said,
scaring me.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because it would all just crumble if I lost my mojo. If I realized I couldn't fly, no, everything falls down. And I said, you're right. There's always more money. And as I said that, a shower of $50 notes hit our car. And $50 notes in Australia are yellow. We have plastic money. And it was a couple of $1,000s worth that hit our car. Like, that bank heist where the money explodes. Mm-hmm. It exploded onto our windshield. And Mark's wipers turned on automatically. And we screamed. We were just like, oh my God, what happened? And to this day, I have no idea. I don't know if someone, was on their way to buy a big purchase and money flew out. I have no idea what happened. And it was flying all around the road and it was crazy. And he was like, do we stop? And I was like, well, that's not the lesson. The lesson that there's always more money. And so we say that to ourselves as a shortcut of, sell more boot camps, go help some more people. There's always more people in the world that you can help. Yeah. And so get focused. And that's what's really helped me focus in business is we always say all roads lead to boot camp. So everything I create has to go to boot camp. I can create marketing that is as wild and crazy and weird as I want because I know all roads lead to boot camp, but I don't break boot camp. And that's where I see ADHD people. They break their back end, not their front end.
Yes.
And all I just say to myself is just don't break it today. You can break it tomorrow. You can do something else tomorrow. Just don't do it today. And that's just enough for me to go, okay, well, I can just do this weird marketing thing then because it will lead to boot camp eventually. And every time I think, oh, everyone's seen my work or whatever, just sell more boot camps. And I actually, just this next week, I'm closing on a new property and it's a bank. It's a bank that is a residence as well. And it's, a commercial property, so I'm not going to live there, but we can Airbnb it, and there's a commercial where the old bank used to be, and then there's a bank residence at the back where the manager would have lived with his family. And that is totally one of those things too of going, help more people, sell more boot camps, and then you can fund these really cool creative projects. And that too, I bought it with my best friend who's a designer, interior designer, and we make beautiful Pinterest boards and have that beautiful creativity. But that's not my business. She's the interior designer. That's her business. But I use that as fuel to help more people because I think my brain does need something to work towards and thrive, to. And then I go, great, well, let me go help some more people in my boot camp. And I think that's really the key for people with ADHD is that we can get so all over the place, but I've got a funnel, I've got a bucket to direct that energy into that can really help people. And that's saved me from breaking my business multiple times. And I've seen so many people do it.
And that really is the key, right? We do something, we get to the point where we're good at it, it's making good money, and then all of a sudden, oh, we're bored, we're going to go do this next thing. Rather than keeping that going while you're doing some of these other things that satisfy that dopamine need.
Yes, exactly. Well, the other way I'm doing it too, and I think this would be a really great tip for anyone listening, is instead of going, oh, I'll do something else instead of money mindset, I'm looking for the little niches within money mindset. So I'm creating a series of guides, money mindset for writers, money mindset for photographers, money mindset for dance teachers. And I will never run out of those topics. And I think that's a really great thing for my ADHD brain. Instead of going, don't get something new and sexy, but this will feel new and sexy because then I can go and interview all of the people in my community who are dance teachers, who are photographers, who, are whatever profession, and I'm never going to run out of them. So I'm sure in the next 5-10 years, I'm going to create hundreds and hundreds of those because every time I feel myself getting a little bit itchy, I'll go, okay, go pick a profession and do it. And I think eventually I'll be able to create those so quickly but give somewhere for my hyper focus to go to so I don't go buy 20 couches.
Okay. So I want to talk about keyless life, but specifically, what I have noticed is that one of the places where ADHD women get stuck is this guilt about I can't hire help. And you have a quote in the book, I live like a 1950s dad, and I love it. So can you talk about that? Because many times when I say you need to get help, if you hate to clean your home and you're not doing it and it's mucking up your brain, you need to hire someone who's good at that to help you. And I'll hear, well, no, I can't do that. I can't afford it. All of the reasons. It's, privilege, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you can't afford not to do it. You don't understand. It's stopping you from doing those things that you really want to do that you're good at. Could you talk about this?
Of course. Well, the keyless life philosophy really comes from my painful experiences of always losing my keys as a kid. And in my 20s, when I lived in share houses, my flatmates would come home to see me sitting on the doorstep reading a book because I'd forgotten my keys. And so when I bought my first house, I just thought, let's eliminate this problem altogether. And we put keyless entry, just a little, beep, beep, beep. And I can get in and I just have to remember one number. And my office here has one of those keyless entries as well. My house does. And so it is a literal thing for me of I just don't want to have keys. And I think that's sometimes where we go, well, I'll do a course to get better at remembering that. I will come up with all of these solutions to go around it or be better or change myself to do it. And I just went, I'm just going to eliminate that problem. I'm never going to have to carry keys on me. And I haven't had keys for more than 10 years, which is great. And I've got the keyless entry for my car, so I can just have it in the bottom of my bag. I've put all my cards on my phone, so I never have to worry about losing my wallet, which I used to do all of the time. And so that's the philosophy. And then with getting help, I started this before I really could afford it with just a cleaner coming every 2 weeks to deep clean the bathrooms and things like that. And then as I've made more money, I've upgraded that. And here's the thing. I think most people with ADHD could wear all the hats in their business because we're good at that. I love doing marketing. I love doing social media content. I love doing everything in my business except for bookkeeping. That's the thing I really struggled with. But I can't do a lot of the things in my house without it really, really draining me. And I remember doing laundry one time, and it should be a simple thing, right? Chuck everything in the washing machine, hang it out. But I started to go, what's the best way to hang these things out so they dry in an optimal way? And then, of course, I started, I wonder what the best hangers are for this. What's the best drying rack? I need to get 3 baskets so we can start sorting things, and we can have a basket for whites, a basket for mixed stuff, a basket for black. And then I was like, do red things, should they go in the mixed or should they go in the black? So I spent an hour thinking about the laundry, which I'm sure you've done as well. And then I started stressing about just all these different things. And then I forgot to put the washing machine on. And then I finally put the washing machine on. And then I forgot to put it out. And so then the washing sat there for 2 days. And so for me, any of those things, I think I could expend that energy helping people and making money in my business. And so now I have so much help. I have people to help me with my kids. And I have a housekeeper who comes 4 days a week. She comes from 7 till about 11. And I came home from a business trip yesterday. She's unpacking my suitcase today. And I make sure I put all my laundry in one bag so she doesn't have to root through everything. But she'll put away my toiletries bag. She'll put away my shoes. And then put that suitcase away. And that used to take me months, sometimes weeks, if I was lucky, sometimes days. And it would drive Mark crazy. He'd go, can you just unpack for your trip? And I'd go, I can't. I literally cannot. I would forget to eat. I would forget to feed my kids sometimes. And if Mark's away, because Mark does cooking, our housekeeper does all the cooking, and then Mark heats it up. I remember one time Mark was going away and the dads were like, who's going to feed us? And I went, who do you think? And they went, Nan? And I went, no, dude, it's me. And then, of course, I would kind of forget and then go, oh, my God, all right, we're having baked beans on toast. Or mummy pizza. Mummy pizza is just grilled cheese. And now, again, I have compassion for my mom, thinking some of the meals she fed us were so random. And I internalized that of going, I'm a neglected child. No one cares about me. And now I totally get it. Now I'm like, oh, okay, here you go, beans on toast. And so I yeah, I'm unapologetic about that now, because I remember seeing my granddad, he was the breadwinner, and he didn't have any guilt about any of that. And clean clothes just magically appeared for him, because we had this mentality of like, men's energy is so important and ours are not. And so I just talk about that a lot, because, it's kind of this thing of, it's not exploitative. It's actually very noble to do everything and be selfless for your family, but it's exploitative to pay someone to do that. And, don't be a jerk. Hire people, pay them well. My employees, they get unlimited sick days if they want to. They get paid time off. They get 401 contributions. And, don't be a jerk. And it's made me also be a little bit less messy and things like that, because I think, well, someone's going to be opening this suitcase. So.
Oh, it's totally true, right?
Yeah.
It keeps you honest, basically.
But it pays for itself, because
It does.
I would not be able to do all of these things in my business, because figuring out a meal plan for the week or anything like that, it would take that very limited bandwidth that I have and direct it in a way that's invisible labor to my family. Like, no one's really going to appreciate if it gets done perfectly or not. But I would get so into my perfectionism around it, and I would expend so much energy doing it, and it would drain my energy to write books and do other things. And so my kids are growing up seeing a different way of being, for sure. And there's a lot of guilt that I think comes from people. People say, well, how are your kids going to learn how to do anything? And I say, but do your kids see you doing all of those things? They really don't. Do your kids thank you every day for doing those things? Most of the time, they don't even notice. And so I would actually say to most entrepreneurs, get help at home before you get help in your business, because it will pay off. The payoff will be so much better for you, your energy, your family, but also your income, because then you have more bandwidth to grow your income.
Absolutely. So, Denise, what is it about you and your ADHD that makes you so good at what you do?
Multitasking, for sure. This last couple of days of filming, it was very, very long hours. It was hair and makeup at 6:30, on camera at 9, and we would finish at midnight. And I think there's just something there about, I don't know, we've got a superpower around that, but also things like I can read a teleprompter, smile, read the words, also see that in the next paragraph there's a typo and I'm going to have to substitute that word. And at the same time, make a mental note to think, okay, I have to, change that in the script for next time. And also another side note to remember to tell Mark something about that, or to tell the lady who's looking at the transcripts, turning them into PDFs, just I can do all of those things all at the same time. And that, I think, is just such a magical superpower that we have.
Do you have good working memory?
Yeah. Sometimes.
You don't forget things.
Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. But in that context, it is just such a superpower, because I don't know that many people who could film that amount of content, and still make it look good and still do it. And actually I had to film a corporate gig recently, and I was very nervous about it. And I turned up, I thought it was just going to be me and a film guy. And there was like a crew of 5 people. There were the clients were watching online on Zoom in real time and giving feedback. And there was a moment where I just went, I can't do this. And then I was like, TTT, okay, pull this out. And I just got on the teleprompter, and I'm a bit of a one-take wonder. Sometimes I can, just power through it. And they were all just like, whoa, like we've never seen like a non-media person be able to do this. And it was just because I went, yeah, I can just multitask. My brain can just do all of this at the same time and kind of turn it off. The only thing was, at the lunchtime, the sound guy said, wow, I was really impressed by how quick, you could just nail it. And I said, yeah, I was really nervous. And he goes, well, let me tell you a secret. I could hear your heart beating in the microphone, because the microphone was just right on my chest between my boobs. And I thought, oh, he's the only one who knew my secret, because to everyone else, I was just like, showtime, let's do it. And I think, oh man, thank God I've got ADHD.
This
So
must
stuff
be
like that.
especially
Oof.
difficult for you, though, because you're an introvert. I would have thought you were an extrovert, but you're not. You're an introvert. So this robs you of energy, right?
But it's that intensity that I can do. And
Mm.
then, I mean, this is the beauty of online business. We can do it from home. We can batch content. I love batching. And because that's a superpower too, I might get in a hyper focus and almost like a puzzle that you have to finish. I'll just be like, oh, well, I'm going to batch my social media ahead of time. And I did that for my rose farm. I did like 150 days worth in one day because I thought I want to just get to the end of the year, and I couldn't stop until I'd filled in all of those gaps. And so I have those intense moments, but then that content can last for a while. I can spend a day in the podcast studio and do 20 podcasts. Great, that's 20 weeks of content. And so it looks like I'm always on.
Wait a minute. You can do 20 podcasts in a day?
Yes.
That is amazing. I don't think I've ever done more than 3. I have no idea. And I'm kind of, beat after 3. I'm just blown away.
But you're interviewing people.
Yeah, but not always. I couldn't do 20. How long are your podcasts?
It's about 20 minutes. And then,
Okay.
there's
Okay.
ads and intro and stuff like that.
Okay. So that would be so if I can do 3, that would be like 9, right? Since
Yeah,
mine are normally around an hour. But still, I'm bowing down to you. I can't believe that. That's amazing.
The problem of that though, Tracy, is again, it becomes that extreme because instead of going, wow, I'll do this really intense day and that's 20 weeks of that, I'm like, well, what else can I do at that extreme pace? And then so I end up being in a lot of that energy. Then I'm like, oh, well, how about I write a book in a weekend? And then, oh, what's the next thing? Oh, how about I do my social media content? Oh, how about I film my entire course in? And so because I think there's that thing then of when things are a little bit too chill and I'm like, oh, why don't I do this?
Yep,
and so I have to watch myself that I don't do those things.
What do you think the key to living successfully with ADHD is?
Well, you have to go with the flow of it. And anytime you're trying to overcome, it's just finding the circumstances in which that is useful and helpful and not destructive. And again, that's what works for me. All roads lead to boot camp. So great, I can do those things. And it is that Zen approach of, floating downstream rather than paddling upstream against it, and accepting that's who I am. I'm always going to have a million ideas. So how can I direct that gently so I don't cause chaos in that?
I always think of Frank Sinatra's song, Light and Easy.
Oh, I don't know that song.
Listen to it.
I'm going to look that up.
I'm not going to sing it. One time I sang it on the podcast. I am not going to sing it, but it's basically light and easy, light and easy, light and easy every time. And the whole idea is if it's light and easy, it's happy, it works. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say I did it my way because I feel like that's
Yeah, that would be too. But, I have a relative who actually played that at her funeral. She requested it. And so I can't even listen to it anymore. And she wasn't a particularly nice person either. So
I understand that.
She just ruined that song for me. Okay, before I let you go, do you have a workaround to share with us? Something that is, one of your primary workarounds?
Well, definitely the keyless life philosophy for me is how can I eliminate this problem altogether? So sometimes we look at our business, we look at our to-do list, and there should just be stuff that just goes off it, just to go, no one should be doing this in the business. And whether that is, kind of an outlandish idea, or maybe you're trying to do all of the social media platforms at once, it's just like, okay, what can we just take out completely? And then I look at what I can batch, or what I can delegate, or what I can completely outsource. And so I think that's my go-to is eliminate, delegate, batch, outsource. Then things become easier. Just actually another Frank Sinatra thing, the New York song. The thing that annoys me so much is when you see people drunkenly doing a kick line at a wedding or a conference. And from that dance background, I'm always just like, kick in time, people, please, kick in time.
Wait. So is that related to your dance background?
Yes, totally.
Okay.
Just
It,
thought of that Frank Sinatra
I'm
thing.
like
I'm just
that
like,
when I see
I
people
have
do
to read
ballet
it.
and their hands aren't, you can tell like they never had good training.
Yes, or when you see stock photos where someone's just put a pair of point shoes on a
Yes. Oh my
model,
gosh. Yes. And
and
there's
you go,
no arch. Yes, exactly. It's just
"You're not
straight
a
up and
ballerina."
down. Yeah,
I
totally.
I'm really excited actually to do money mindset for dance teachers because I love bringing together parts of my world into my new world. And I just think there's so many mindset issues that we have in so many professions where we think, no, I have to do this for the love of it, or I'm not allowed to make money. And, I've worked with so many dance teachers now. And even just the fact that in tap dancing, you start on the 8 count rather than the 1, right? You have to start before you're ready. And
Mm.
I feel like there's so many analogies there to ADHD and dance of just going, yeah, the show must go on, but you're allowed to cancel a show. And yeah, there's some good lessons in that.
Absolutely. So, where can people find you if they want to know more? Is there anything you want to tell us about?
Oh, wow. What a fun conversation, first of all. Thanks. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank
So
you.
my website is denisedt.com. My social handles are at denisedt.com. There's a book bonus page for the new book, Chill and Prosper, at denisedt.com/prosper. You can get the book anywhere. I read it on Audible. It's, paperback and Kindle, but you can go to that denisedt.com/prosper to get the book bonuses. And then I'm just so easy to find everywhere. You can, just Denise Lucky Bitch, you'll find me, or Denise Chill. And I actually really love hearing people's stories. I love collecting different nuances around money mindset and different experiences and different analogies. So, really, I love it when people send me a DM or just a little aha. I collect all of those little stories. And yeah, I'd love to hear from people. And I mean, gosh, I'd love to hear anyone's ahas from this interview. Tag us both and tell us what came up for you. Yeah. Thanks,
Well,
Tracy, for
thank
having
you.
me and letting me talk about everything and being able to talk about my book. I appreciate it so much. And your group really was a catalyst for me because, I think I did have that stigma of going, this is something that has, been a source of such shame for me for such a long time. And realizing that we have these superpowers, but also having compassion. There's sometimes people in your groups, they're still figuring out how to use it as a superpower and still figuring out how to use it in business and to direct it in healthy ways. And it's given me just such compassion for our community. And really, you opened up some really big light bulb moments for me. So I just appreciate this work that you're doing in igniting people and giving themselves permission to explore it or to get a diagnosis. I think it's life-changing work, really, Tracy. It really is.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And yeah, go out and get Chill and Prosper. So I bought the book so I could tab because that's what I do. So I don't forget things. And especially because I was having you here, I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. But I actually, I listened to the Audible version. And I love that. And I think it's because it was your voice, not just your speaking voice, which is, I don't know, it's just so familiar. And, you feel like you after you start listening to it. But I also loved your voice as far as your voice as a writer. So if you
Oh,
struggled to
thank you.
read, I think the Audible is great. I don't like when I listen to an Audible and it's not the author's voice or the author has a bad voice, then that's not good either. But this one, it was just, again, it was light and easy. So
Well,
I'm
it's
really,
hard to do. I understand why authors don't want to do it. It's a big task, sitting there, you have to bring warmth into your voice and read at the same time. Again, it's a very ADHD superpower. I did get in trouble the first time I recorded an audiobook because I wanted to put in all this extra information. I was like, oh, that reminds me of a story that didn't get in the book. And they were like, no, you can't do that. You have to read it as it is, verbatim, please. But it's a really tricky thing to do. But I'm really lucky that I got to be able, that they allow me to read it myself because it's a fun way. And then people can speed it up too if they want to listen to the book like that.
1 1/4. That's what I normally do. Denise, thank
Yes,
you so
perfect.
much for spending time with us here today.
Thanks.
So that's what I have for you for this week. If you like this episode with Denise, please let us know by leaving a review. Our goal is to change the conversation around ADHD, helping as many women as we possibly can learn how their ADHD brains work so that they too may discover their amazing strengths. And you know what? Your reviews really help. As always, you're listening to ADHD for Smartass Women. Come join me over at TracyOutsuka.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you here next week. You've been listening to the ADHD for Smartass Women podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Outsuka, and we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Not coincidentally, ADHD for Smartass Women, it's also the name of our free Facebook group. We're a totally smartass community of successful, ambitious women who share our ADHD wins, questions, and workarounds. Join us at TracyOutsuka.com, where you can also find more information on our Your ADHD Brain is A-OK system. I spy a happier life for us.